Yo, what is up everyone, back here with another video. In today's video, we are going to be doing a Paradox Pokemon tier list where we break down pretty much all Paradox Pokemon and I put them in a tier list according to how good I think they are. If you guys enjoyed this kind of video, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know if you agree with my placements, where you think stuff should have been if you don't agree with my placements. And make sure to check out Patreon if you guys would like to support me. Thank you to all my patrons for supporting the content. I incredibly appreciate it. And also, make sure to check out coaching if you guys would like to get better at the game. But yeah, okay. With that, we'll get right into it. Okay, so Brute Bonnet. Brute Bonnet is a very interesting Pokemon. I think overall it has a really interesting kit. As I mentioned in a previous video, it is basically like a Moongus, but just stronger, I guess is the way to put it. Let me actually open this right here and then pull up, not this, pull up Amoonguss. So Amoonguss and Brute Bonnet obviously have a distinguishable difference between their stats. As I mentioned in my previous video, Amoonguss's stats are way higher than, Brute Bonnet's stats are way higher than Amoonguss. Also, I'll just call it like Giga Chad Amoonguss, I guess. Anyways, Giga Chad Amoonguss is stronger than, normal Amoonguss. So pretty much Giga Chad Amoonguss, what it does is like it has a way stronger attack, so it has a bit more utility there. Faster speed, so if you do like Jolly Sash, right, you can like outspeed stuff and get faster spores off. Amoonguss could not normally run a set like that. I think for what it is, it's a very good Pokemon. I think out of the Paradox Pokemon as well, it has a good amount of viability. So I placed at the top of the general Pokemon tier in my previous tier list. And the reason why it's going to be lower on this tier list is because I think individually this Pokemon has less power and does less than the other Pokemon. Just so you guys know, if you see, it looks a little bit lower than like I had rated in the other video. Also, this Pokemon, again, like this is early tier list, right? So it could be wrong, like I'm probably going to come back and revisit these later on. But this is from my competitive experience, so I have a pretty good inkling of what's good and what's not. Okay, so Brute Bonnet, I'm gonna put him down in A, maybe high B. I'm gonna decide on this when I actually, like kind of go through the list. Okay, Flutter Main. So Flutter Main to me is an A tier, so I really think Flutter Main is good. The reason why I think Flutter Main is really good is because obviously you have that really high special attack it has. I'm pretty sure it got banned from singles already. Which is really funny because it's just like a really strong Pokemon, and that just shows you like how potent it is. In doubles, obviously it's easier to mitigate because of the power level being like more balanced out with like 2 slots at a time. The thing is too with Flutter Main is that you have to commit into Modest, which means you're getting outsped by like the Jolly Roaring Moons, and also like there are a lot of fast Pokemon that could potentially punish your Flutter Main. Give me a second. Sorry, I had a cough. Yeah. So pretty much like it has a good kit overall. That being said, it is very linear in its job, but I think that it's like such an upgrade from its original form. Like it has to be a higher placement just because of like how good it is. Also compared to like its counterparts, like it's good, it's a very strong Pokemon. So to me, like Flutter Main definitely deserves like the recognition, I guess, that it's getting. So Great Tusk is another one. So Great Tusk is definitely in like the A tier viability. Note that like within the A tier, I'm not really gonna organize these guys too much in like the order. I think maybe I'll try at the end, but like I'm just putting it like where I think they are category wise, and then like it can be determined from there on. So Great Tusk is really good, especially when you're running a clear amulet on it. The only thing that really holds it back is pretty much that it has a weird speed tier. So pretty much like Great Tusk in competitive, like when you're utilizing it, right, its speed tier is like can sometimes like hold it back, but it has such good base stats otherwise that like it really compensates for it, besides special attack obviously. So it can do a lot. It's actually a really cool Pokemon. I think it's actually really strong in general. Like it was designed really well because it was designed literally to make like Donphan better, and I think it achieved its goal, right? It's a very strong Pokemon. So I think it deserves its spot. Like these Pokemon all have really strong base stats, and like they're frail in like 1 degree, right? Besides Brute Bonnet, which is the most well-rounded of these 3 so far. Misdreavus really commits into special attacking, doing a bunch of damage. Brute Bonnet commits into that overall bulk, but you lose out on speed. The Great Tusk is pretty much I have enough speed to get most of what I want done. I have a really high attack stat, really high defense stat, really high HP stat. It gives me a lot of bulk, but I'm weak on the special end, right? So you can see how they kind of spec into different things. Okay, So Iron Bundle is going to go into B for me. So I know a lot of people are talking about like how it's really good because Iron Bundle has a lot of coverage, right? So if you don't know, like this thing has a really high special attack stat, which is like kind of crazy for it. And its speed is actually really good. So you can like even like run just modest on it and you're still outspeeding a lot of things. Now, the notable thing with the Pokemon as well is it has a pretty like interesting like coverage almost because it's literally just water and ice moves, right? So it kind of makes it like weird picking the right moves for it. The one thing that's like kind of awkward for it as well is it seems like there's like besides Hydro Pump, there's like no good water moves for it, which I think holds it back, especially. And like you don't want to use like chilling water, for example, right? Because like that's just too weak. You're not getting enough done. And this isn't really like a super bulky Pokemon besides defense stat. So like you're trying to get as much damage done as possible, which pretty much traps you into running Freeze Dry, Hydro Pump, and then like one other coverage move. Could be Terra Blast if you like maybe change your type. But you are very limited in your coverage. And to me, like that's not a Pokemon that like screams like crazy amount of potential to me. So it's gonna go down into the B tier. All right, Iron Hands. So Iron Hands is gonna be the first S tier. I think Iron Hands is incredibly freaking good. Like this thing's actually just like a complete upgrade from Hariyama itself. Kind of like the other ones, but like even more so. It's the best user of Booster Energy. Like I'm pretty sure Booster Energy was literally made with it in mind. And like it has like some of the craziest damage output in the entire game because you basically run adamant on this thing and it has so much damage that it picks up because you get the photosynthesis or sorry, the quark drive. And then you have like a lot of bulk to compensate and you actually have so many EVs left over even when you fully invest that you can just make it specially bulky. And like it's such a high HP in defense, you don't even need to worry about too much about investing into defense or HP, right? So like literally this thing is like one of the most perfectly designed Pokemon for like what it wants to be on, right? So like on a Trick Room team, like this Pokemon's so scary. And it can go for like a boosted close combat. If it terrestrializes into fighting type, it does 1,000,000 damage. Like I've watched this thing with close combat, like hit an Amoonguss for like 77% with a Terra fighting close combat, which is like if you guys know Amoonguss, like that's wild. That is not something that any Pokemon can do. So this Pokemon is incredibly strong. It can do a lot. The only thing that holds it back is its speed tier is a little weird. So like if you set Trick Room and then your opponent has like a Torkoal or like an Amoonguss, like it can get a bit awkward. But again, you can catch a lot of things on the swap, and its damage output's absolutely ridiculous, right? Like it's just so crazy as a mon. So yeah, I'm considering moving Delibird down, but this is in forms of doubles viability anyway, so I guess it's fine. All right, so Roaring Moon is another S tier for me. I know I skipped the others. I just wanted to talk about the two S tiers. So Roaring Moon is like really strong. It has so many potent sets that it can run in doubles as well. So pretty much like when I've been looking at this mon, the main sets that like I've seen that are really cool are the I mean, I use this set actually on a lot of showdown tournaments as well, but literally like the band set with Terra Steel is just really potent because with choice band steel moves you're actually destroying a lot of checks for Roaring Moon, and you just it like perfectly complements what Roaring Moon is as a Pokemon, right? Like Grimmsnarl, which normally pressures this, it won't want to click Thunder Wave into you because you're Terra Stealing, right? But you're a Dark and Dragon type, so it can't like paralyze you yet. Because of, you know, how Prankster works with dark types. And, you know, there's obviously a bunch of things that allow this thing to be so potent when it changes its type into steel. As well, there's also a flying Terra Mence that's been going around. Like, let's say you don't have a Sun team, right? And you're running Booster Energy, you can go with Dragon Claw, Dragon Dance, Acrobatics, and Protect. And you basically get a stab. You basically get Stab Acrobatics with Booster Energy, which is insane amounts of damage. It absolutely destroys like any grass type or anything that's getting hit like really strong by it. And you also change your weaknesses. So normally you would be weak with, you know, Dragon and Dark, so like fighting. Fairy's in neutral one now, or, you know, types like that. And you'd be weak to Bug. And because you change your type into flying, you're resisting those. And even the only like weakness that carries over is ice. And because you're a Dragon Dark type, like no one's gonna want to click an electric move into you when you're changing into like a flying type, right? So just a lot of potent things there. It's a Dragon Den set that can do a lot. I think this Pokemon has a ton of potential. I'm actually gonna be talking about it in an article. I'll probably mention that in like my next video when the article's up. But yeah. All right, Iron Jugalus. So here's my thing with Iron Jugalus. It's like, you know how most of these are like kind of like a better version of their counterpart. I think the biggest problem Iron Jugalus has is like I'm not sure it's a better than its like counterpart. Because so it gains like a little bit of stats in terms of its you know, a speed, which is nice, but it loses some defenses, and I'm not sure you get better coverage for it, right? Because like Hydreigon, for example, let's say you're running it, right? Like you would want to turn it into a Terra Steel type, right? Let's say you were running like AV or something on it, right? Like this would this would be good because you have Levitate, right? So you're literally turning into a type that's like you're not getting punished for it. You know, you're able to do a lot with this type, you know, because you're not taking the ground damage because you have Levitate, and then like all your only weakness that you retain is like fighting. But with, you know, Iron Jugalus, it's awkward because you have a flying type. Now, what I think Iron Jugalus might be better with, to my understanding, because I've like looked at this mod a lot, and originally like I was pretty harsh on it because I thought that it was just kind of like a worse Hydreigon. There are ways you can use this, but what I think you have to do is like you have to do like a nasty plot set. Oh, it doesn't even get nasty plot. Never mind. Yeah, I forgot. It doesn't even get nasty plot. Yeah, so I feel like, yeah, it'd just have to be like a life orb fast attacking set, and like that would be like where you would go with this thing. I mean, you could do booster energy, but booster energy is like limited in terms of like how long you can last, right? Because once you swap out, it's gone. If you have the life orb, then you can actually like do a bit more consistently. And like, don't get me wrong, it doesn't have like awful stats, so like you'll still be able to utilize this like more than fine. It's just the main issue that you might encounter is that like, why wouldn't I use like Hydreigon, for example? It's just different coverage. I would probably be terrestrializing this into a darker flying type, if anything. It might even be worth like considering like, does it even get a stronger flying move? I guess Hurricane. You know what I could see this being good on? Rain. Like, so Hydreigon would be good as like a Pokemon on its own, and then like with like Politoed, or sorry, not Politoed, Pelipper, and like those kind of mods, I could see this being like maybe decent. But yeah, like anyways, point being, like it's not necessarily better than its counterpart. For that, it gets a B. It's not a terrible Pokemon as a whole, because again, we're rating them against each other. Like I am considering some things with the metagame as well. But I'm also thinking about the Pokemon, like how they interact with each other. Like Roaring Moon and Hariyama are objectively better than their counterparts, right? And you know, with Flutter Main, you know, Amoonguss, Great Tusk, they're objectively better than their counterparts, right? Then you start getting into the realm where like, I mean, Delibird's obviously better than its counterpart, but like basically Iron Jugalus is like not necessarily better than Hydreigon, so it doesn't really get a high placement. So honestly, it's gonna be the same with Iron Moth. So the problem that Iron Moth has is like, okay, so let's compare like Volcarona and like Iron Moth, right? And also even compared to the other Paradox forms, I think it's fairly underpowered. Like they were scared to give this thing, like make this thing strong. Like they went halfway in making it strong, basically. So they gave this thing you know, a really high speed stat, a really high offense stat, and this is obviously better than you know, Volcarona. Volcarona has a little bit less offense, a little bit less speed, a little bit less special defense, but it has a bit more HP, a bit more defense, right? So, and obviously it's bug and fire, so it has different, you know, resistances. Basically, they chickened out because they gave this thing like Fiery Dance, right? Which is fine. This is good. They didn't give it Sludge Bomb. They only gave it Sludge Wave. So, because it only has Sludge Wave, it's guaranteed to hit its partners like every time on the field, especially if you're playing VGC. So now you basically have a Pokemon that's forced to hit itself unless you want to run like Acid Spray. And don't get me wrong, like I think Acid Spray could be good support. I'm sure someone will find a use for this. Maybe like a Sash Acid Spray set to like support a team. But it's not going to be near as like potent as it would have been if it had Sludge Bomb, right? If this thing had Sludge Bomb, it would have been incredibly like good in comparison, because it would have had so much offense, and like Poison Fire is a really good offensive coverage. But when it comes to the drawback of like hitting yourself, like it's not necessarily worth it, right? So here's hoping they can buff it. There's also no there's no Quiver Dance as well on this thing. So this thing isn't even like scary with Quiver Dance. So there's like a little bit less it can do, right? So, you know, that's pretty much the main thing that comes along with Iron Moth. I mean, realistically, Volcarona, if you want like a strong Quiver Dancer that can do more for your team, like you can do this, and then you can have obviously like a Citrus Berry. This thing has more like sizable bulk that you can utilize. And even if you like Terra type it into like a grass type, like you could get a lot out of it, right? Volcarona is like, Iron Moth is a little bit more trapped by its bulk and its typing to where you have to be offensive with it, basically. Okay, Iron Thorn. So Iron Thorns is a weird Pokemon to me. So like basically I think it was just hurt by the fact that every Pokemon had to have Quark Drive, because that's like the gimmick of like the Pokemon, obviously. By the way, Shiny Iron Thorns looks dope. Obviously I don't have it, but yeah. So here's my thing with Iron Thorns, right? Basically it's like, okay, so you take Tyranitar, right? You take away its best. So like the one thing that like is nice for it, I guess, is that it has like a ability that boosts its like stats. But like, okay, like comparing these two, you put a little bit in speed, which doesn't really matter too much for it, right? Then you take out of special defense, right? So you literally take out of special defense and you make this mon like worse in that way, right? Like you're literally taking out a special defense and you're pretty much putting it into, you know, your speed stat. That's basically what happened here. They also nerfed it and literally just took away special attack to take away special attack. I think they were just scared to make this thing too good, but in the process, like kind of like the other mons, but in the process, like they just made like a worse T-Tar. Like if I'm playing this format, I want to use Tyranitar, and even if we're just going by the judgment, like no VGC or like no competitive doubles, that you're like literally checking the you're just weighing them against each other. Like I think that objectively Tyranitar is better, right? And also too, like even with terrestrialization, like this thing will struggle to get its job done, especially in like a doubles format. So to me, like I probably would put this like in the B category. I would even consider putting it in C, to be honest. But yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's pretty bad in comparison to its counterpart. And like, remember, this can change. I mean, it's still not bad stats, but like, I don't see a reason why you would use it over Tyranitar, right? So next up is Iron Tread. So Iron Tread, to be honest, is just kind of like, you know the word mid? It's like the word mid in a nutshell. Like, okay, so let's compare Great Tusk and Iron Treads, for example, right? Like, because it's not even like close. So, okay, they decided to give this thing more special attack, right? It's ground steel type. They give this thing more special attack. They lowered its attack and lowered its defense. They lowered its HP. They gave it a bit more special defense, but it literally is just worse offensively. And it has Quark Drive, which is objectively worse than Photosynthesis. See where I'm going with this? So this is just like a worse Pokemon because it doesn't have anything to easily activate. And even if you had a booster energy, then you're still suffering from the weaknesses that the other Donphin had, but even like worse, basically, because you have less HP anyways, right? So like even if I were to like max this out, it'd be fine. Like I would probably take a like most hits better with Great Tusk without any investment than an Iron Treads with investment, basically. So to be like, it's just automatically on the bottom, because the problem is too is like you literally. Also, I'm gonna put Delibird, I think, in C, and I'm gonna put Tyranitar in B. But anyways, like you literally just made it like worse than Great Tusk, so it's like, yeah, like it's not gonna be that great, you know, like it already takes off a lot of points for that. So basically, by the way, in realms of viability, super viable, like really, really good. Also really viable, still good. Starting to get into like territory where it's like, I don't really know why I should use this over the counterpart, and this is like the probably not great. I'm actually gonna put Tyranitar down there as well. I think Iron Treads is by far the worst. I'd probably put Delibird above the Tyranitar. Yeah, I'd say this is like pretty fair. Okay, next up, Iron Valiant. So Iron Valiant is a really interesting one. It basically has like a really, really strong special attack and a really strong attack, which makes this thing really potent for doing like its job in either way. And you can customize it to your team. And I think that's an incredibly nice tool that's like really underrated. The only problem is its lack of bulk and its lack of like higher stats. So like, for example, right, let's say I'm using Flutter Main, right? The nice thing with Flutter Main is even though like, yes, I have less defense than like Iron Valiant, I'm able to be like overall like faster and do a ton of damage, right? Iron Valiant's like kind of like a minute version of that, where like you have to invest into a stat and it doesn't necessarily give you the same rewards, and the trade-off is like a little bit more bulk, right? So like it balances out a bit, but overall I would say that like this probably needs like more general support than like Flutter Main would, because Flutter Main like just does so much damage that like all you have to do is like burn a physical attacker, like intimidate it, and then this thing's in a good position. And like I think and like this is still gonna get like pretty high because as a Pokemon design, like this makes Gardevoir and Gallade like better. Like this is literally a better Gardevoir and Gallade, right? For the most part. So to me, like that automatically gets it in like low A, high B, because it's like solid. But I wouldn't necessarily equate it to these guys, so I'm gonna leave it in high B, but it's still good, right? So Sandy Shocks is a really interesting one. No one's really been talking about this Pokemon, but I'm kind of surprised because I actually think it's a really, really cool Pokemon. It like is one of the best users of Terra Grass type I've ever seen, right? Like Life Orb Terra Grass type, this thing is actually a menace because you get Earth Power, you get Thunderbolt, and then you have Terra Blast. So you can literally change into a type that is perfectly resistant to everything that Electric Ground resists, right? And that's just like a really nice tool. And also too, like Grass Terra Blast like destroys so many things that check this thing. I think this thing's gonna be a really potent threat, and I think that once people realize it, like it'll be more common. But it's like also really decent bulk as a whole. So even though like yes, you're gonna lose out on like, you know, a bit of like HP, you still have like a strong like speed tier with Timid 168. You're outspeeding base 100s, and you still have a really strong like special attacking stat, which makes this thing like really good overall. I'm actually really excited to see this thing in play because I actually think it has potential on like a lot of teams and can be utilized better. So for me, I'm gonna put it in B. It's not on level of like Great Tusk, Brute Bonnet, Flutter Main, because like I think those are like the supreme ones. But yeah, it's still good. All right. So next up is Screamtail. So Screamtail is a really interesting one. It has like a really good support kit, so it can work with a couple different teams in the format. The main one that people have been using it with has been Perish Song. But I think that there's other potential. So like I think it has potential to be the best screen setter in the entire format, literally because of how fast it is combined with its bulk, right? Like this looks like a really nasty screens abuser, and spreading thunder waves on everything is actually like really like crazy. And like it's one of the only mons out of the group that like doesn't really rely on its ability to get anything done. And not that the other ones do, but like they're a little bit more reliant on it if like you want to be doing more damage. This one doesn't really care about damage, so the photosynthesis is just like a bonus. It's not necessarily something that you need, but like fast Thunderwave, fast Dazzling Gleam, fast Light Screen, fast Reflect, like that's really cool. It also has other like status moves, so let's take a look at the status moves. It literally gets access to Helping Hand, Fake Tears, so it can be fast Fake Tears, Encore. It gets access to Perish Song, obviously, as I mentioned, for other teams, Trick, Wish. Like it can do so many different things on a team that I think it's just incredibly cool, and it can be really useful. It even gets Trick Room. Like, and don't get me wrong, it's really fast, but like it can still be useful. Also Sing, technically, if you want to like really mess with people and click Sing. But I was thinking the more risk averse mindset, but yeah. So Screamtail to me is actually going to go in A just because I think it has so much potential as like a supporter. But yeah. All right, so finally, Slither Wing is the last one. So Slither Wing, by the way, I think Slither Wing is the cutest design out of all of them. And it's going to sound really weird because you look at the showdown icon and you're like, oh yeah, no, this thing's like ugly. But like when you actually look at the design in like game, it's so pretty. Or it's like so cute. But anyways, so the problem with the Slither Wing has is just its typing, right? Like it kind of got screwed over on typing. You can turn this into a solo fighting type, but its speed is just kind of middling to where like it's not exactly accomplishing too much. That being said, I do think it's like on par with its counterpart. The only problem is that like I don't know if it was built for doubles in mind. It seems like it would be a better singles mon. It does get access to stuff like bulk up. It does get access to stuff like close combat. Like it gets good moves, like first impression, U-turn. Like these are all solid moves. Excuse me, sorry. I had to blow my nose. Leech Life, it gets some decent coverage. It even gets Morning Sun, right? The thing is, though, is like I don't think it gets going as quick as like the other guys. That being said, I don't think it's near as bad as like Iron Treads, Iron Thorns, you know, Iron Bundle, like those guys. Like I think there's more potential. I'm actually gonna, by the way, put Iron Thorns above Iron Bundle only because it literally has more coverage moves than Iron Bundle does. So yeah, Slither Wing for me would probably go like right behind the regular Volcarona. I mean, it's not like the most phenomenal in doubles, so for that reason, I'm gonna have to rate it lower than its counterparts. But it does still have like some niches, like fast first impression, you know, fast like close combat, or like not fast, but like strong close combats. There's a lot of cool things it can do. It's just more so that like it might be held back by, you know, kind of its typing and like where like its speed here. But overall, I think like these Pokemon are really cool. Obviously, I think that Roaring Moon and Iron Hands are like a class above the rest. Like they are infinitely better than anything below them. But then like A, you know, they're still really good. They're solid. And then B is like they have a niche. They have some things that they do well, but they're gonna need to be on specific compositions. And then C is like, why would you really use this over like another, you know, another Paradox Pokemon? So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. You know, hopefully it was informative. Make sure to let me know what you agree with, what you disagree with in the comments. Make sure to check out coaching if you guys would like to get better at the game for when, you know, all the Pokemon competing goes back, you know, ladder, everything else. And yeah, obviously make sure to check out Patreon if you guys would like to support my content more beyond here. As always, guys, I incredibly appreciate all the support on the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.